Hey guys, just a quick bumper before we start this video. Over on the Discord server, and you'll find a link down in the description, but over on the Discord server, we are looking for more moderators. Our Discord server's grown to about 6,200 people. It's nuts. We need more moderators for the Discord. So if you are interested, head over to the Discord server and look for the moderator application channel, and you'll see the kind of questions that we're asking. If you need some help with that, just below that channel is the moderator application help channel. And that'll basically walk you through the process and tell you why we're asking the kind of questions that we're asking and what it is that we're looking for in moderators. So make sure you guys go check that out, and yeah, let's begin. All right, what's going on, guys? This is Rob, and we are picking up with the Aftermath to Joker War and this kind of start of a whole new Batman. And this is cool. If I'm being honest with you guys, I love this new direction that DC's taking Batman in. And if I'm being honest, I kind of feel like it's a long time coming, to be honest with you guys. And you guys will see what I mean by the time we get to the end of this. But initially, this kind of picks up with a bit of musing on behalf of Bruce Wayne, right? In the aftermath of everything that's gone on, it's a little bit of musing here. And he talks about how the way things used to be, right? Back in the day. And when I say back in the day, I mean for quite some time in DC Comics, really since like the introduction of Batman in the very early days, in the sense that when we had Commissioner Gordon, when we had the introduction of the Bat Signal, when you had Alfred, that things kind of followed this pattern, that Bruce Wayne would begin his night, you know, as Batman, he'd put on his cloak and cowl, he'd go out into the city, and then like the Bat Signal might come up, right? And that was just kind of an indicator of, hey, things are popping off, come and see me. Commissioner Gordon would say that, you know, come and see me and I'll kind of give you the skinny on what's happening throughout Gotham as a whole. Now, once Bruce Wayne was given this rundown, it'd be left to him to decide which one needed the most attention, basically, right? And once he narrowed that down, he'd kind of investigate the various clues. Sometimes he would do this with Robin, other times he would do it by himself. He'd have Alfred in his ear, kind of giving him some advice and you know, as an outside perspective. He'd get back to the Batcave. Alfred would basically push him to eat or drink something, but Batman would always have this idea of, if I stay here and investigate long enough, I can kind of put the clues together and I can solve this case. And that was the form and function by which everything in Gotham City worked. And then seemingly over the course of a single night, or over the course of an exceedingly short period of time, all that went away. Alfred died, Commissioner Gordon's out of the picture, the Joker who managed to successfully take over Gotham City, Batman's lost pretty much all of his resources, right? It's kind of just him. And a lot of this discussion that he has really comes from Selina Kyle. And that's when she's kind of like, I can see that look on your face, it drives me insane, I hate it. It's that you've made a decision and it's going to change both of our lives. And it's the right decision to make, but you know that it's going to suck in terms of this decision. And my initial thought was, Batman's calling it off, right? He's basically telling Selina, like, we're no longer together anymore. The reality of this is he basically kind of says, Joker was right. I've been doing this all wrong for a very long time. And that's true, right? Batman's been doing this wrong for a very, very lengthy amount of time, right? And the reason why this kind of comes out picks up about a week ago. And we basically end up picking up with Grifter. And now the reality is that Grifter's a character I don't really know a whole lot about. I know enough to know that he comes from the Wildstorm imprint, which was created by Jim Lee and Brandon Choi back in the day, back in the 90s. And he was part of a group called International Operations, I think it was, kind of like an espionage spy team. Wildstorm was largely its own universe. It was just kind of out there doing its own thing. In the aftermath of Flashpoint and the launch of the New 52, Wildstorm became part of the main DC line of comics, but that's really all I know about Grifter. And honestly, I don't really care that much to know anything more about him. He's not interesting to me. I don't really care much about his character. For the long and short of it, for the sake of this video, since this channel really is designed to educate you guys, the nature of Grifter is such that he has powers insofar as telekinetic abilities. He's exceedingly fast. He's a great con artist, right? He was a member of the U.S. military special ops team or group or whatever you want to call it before he deserted and became a con man effectively. He was at one point involved with a group of aliens called Demonites. I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce that. They basically tried to possess him to take over his physical form. He ended up escaping, and then for the most part he's just kind of been somewhat of a wanderer, I think, and really more of just kind of like a hired gun, like a mercenary. But in this particular instance here, he's basically working as a bodyguard for Lucius Fox. Right now, Batman's aware of who Grifter is. The fight between them is really interesting, and if anything, I think it's really one of these attempts by DC to say, hey guys, like, look at this guy Grifter, you know, he's pretty interesting. I don't think anybody's really buying it. But he's capable enough to where he can kind of fight Batman to a standstill, but he's basically been hired as a bodyguard by Lucius Fox. And the reason for this is, as part of the holdover with regards to Joker War, Lucius Fox is still the person in possession of Batman's wealth, right, of Bruce Wayne's wealth, and really kind of the guy running Wayne Enterprises. Now, in the videos that we do, where we do like a character explanation or team explanation or something like that, we'll talk about stories that happen over the course of a character's publication history that basically changes things up, that kind of initiates a huge status quo. That's what this is, right? This is a massive status quo change for Batman. And so you guys are literally reading history in real time in this particular instance, right? For those of you guys who bought the book, who are reading it right now, you're reading through history, like a huge history change in real time. How long it lasts, we don't really know. But the idea behind this is that with Lucius Fox more or less kind of running the show here, effectively being a billionaire, there's a few things going on. The first is that he still harbors some ill will towards Batman in the sense that everything that happened with Joker War, the way that he was infected by Joker toxin and all that kind of stuff, the experience has left him largely with some measure of PTSD. Now, the other part of that is we kind of get this indication that Punchline is still around, that she's kind of out there talking to the press and things like that. That was DC teasing us with an idea of Punchline's miniseries or maybe her ongoing series, I'm not really sure. But the other part of that is you still have Clown Hunter. And Clown Hunter is still basically going through tracking down members who were part of Joker's gang and then taking them out where he finds them. Now, the reason why this matters is because in the aftermath of Joker War, in the fall of the Joker, those individuals who were part of his army vanished because their leader was effectively gone and their chance of success, right? Their chance of kind of having the world as they wanted it to be actually coming to fruition was gone, right? So it was basically, you guys lost. And in that instance, in that case, they basically took off and they backed down, right? They ended up basically kind of going underground. And that's an important distinction to understand here. There's a difference between quitting and just going to a place where you can't be detected. And that's basically what was happening here. For the Joker's army, in terms of putting on the mask and going out every night and doing things, that's over, right? They don't really do that anymore. Instead, they meet underground. They meet in places that are not easily found and then plot or plan accordingly. Now, the Joker's still out there, and as far as we're aware, the Joker doesn't really have any involvement with his own gang because, as we know as the reader, the Joker doesn't really care about those guys. They believe the Joker cares and they hope the Joker cares, but the Joker doesn't really care about them. They were cannon fodder, right? They were a means to achieve an end. Now, whether or not they were intelligent enough to realize that is a wholly different beast. And in times of desperation, people believe what they want to believe. And what ended up happening here is you had people who wanted things to be a certain way. The Joker represented that way, and ultimately they kind of tied the two together of their own volition. The Joker saying things I like, and the Joker is espousing ideologies I agree with, therefore the Joker agrees with me. The Joker likes me. And the result of that is they ended up kind of becoming the people that they were becoming. Now, the Joker basically kind of falling, the Joker having been defeated, or at the very least his scheme ending, kind of puts them in a position to where it's, well, the Joker's still out there, the Joker will save us. I'm kind of making some assumptions here, but it's interesting. It basically means the Joker's army is not wholly dead, albeit very much, much smaller than it used to be. But the long and short of this is that there are some major things going on with Bruce Wayne, and especially Wayne Enterprises and Lucius Fox. That Lucius Fox, to a degree, kind of enjoys the idea of having all this wealth. He goes as far as to say, I'm not going to lie to you and say that, like, it's fine, that I don't want this money, it doesn't benefit me. It does. It benefits me, it benefits my family. That's the truth of the matter, right? Having these funds at my disposal. But understand that Wayne Enterprises is looking to force you out, right? Like, you are a member of the board, but they're looking to basically give you like a huge chunk of change, let you just kind of draw income seemingly for the rest of your life, and then you go away, right? You basically end up stepping down from Wayne Enterprises as part of the board. You have no decision-making ability anymore. More so than that, the reason why is because the heat's onto you, right? The government is looking at you. One of the big things that came out of Joker War was how Bruce Wayne was spending his money, offshore accounts, different things like that. And so the IRS and the financial sector of the federal government, right? So seemingly the Secret Service, if there's any indication of fraud on a massive level being invoked, they're looking into Bruce Wayne. And so the more he's in the public eye, the more heat and scrutiny he draws onto Wayne Enterprises. And so it's best for business that Bruce Wayne stepped down. And that's one of the big reasons why Lucius Fox is kind of holding on to this money. The other part of that is that the notion that the public perception out there that Bruce Wayne is a person who was potentially engaging in embezzlement, or at the very least tax fraud, right? Like, or even just dodging taxes, is not good for the public, for public perception of Wayne Enterprises. And so one of the other reasons why they want him to step down is so that they can rebrand, right? They can rebrand Wayne Enterprises, right? All new, all different Wayne Enterprises or something like that. Hopefully not as bad as what Marvel did in the aftermath of Secret Wars. But the whole point behind that is they're looking to literally distance themselves from Bruce Wayne. And so the important thing behind this, and the reason why this matters, is that Bruce Wayne cannot operate as Batman the way he's done in the past, which is to say with a unlimited checkbook and all the high-tech gadgetry in the world. That at the end, Batman's gonna have to operate on the most basic level. There's no high-tech gadgetry, there's no super advanced Batmobiles with all the resources in the world that just come off of some endless supply chain. It doesn't work that way anymore. That he's got a Batmobile. If the Batmobile breaks down, he's got to fix it. Now, there's a couple reasons for why this is happening. The first is because at this point, it's obvious DC's bringing Batman comics more in line with Robert Pattinson's Batman film. The other part of this is because we've seen this happen before. The most notable instance came in 1969 during the Frank Robbins and Edmund Hamilton era with Batman number 217. And this was a point where Dick Grayson had basically left to go to college. And the result of this is that Bruce Wayne actually ended up leaving Wayne Manor and taking up residence in the city of Gotham. And the reason why that's important is because what you end up having here is this conversation between himself and Selina Kyle, where he says, that's what I want to do. Now, one of the little moments that comes out of this, and this is really more of a plot point that'll become important later on, is that when Bruce Wayne ends up leaving Lucius Fox, right, leaving that office, he tells Grifter, like, send a message to your boss, right, and send a message to Lucius Fox, tell him I know what Halo is, and basically I'm watching. It looks like it's, you know, some kind of little bit of an underground thing, some kind of plot point that we'll see later on down the line. But kind of picking back up with Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle, again, he basically says, I'm gonna move into the city itself. And that's what he did in the aftermath, really, with Batman 217. He ended up moving into a penthouse inside Gotham City. And that was designed more for him to be closer to the ground, to be more direct. The issue with this is that in the aftermath of that, he ended up deciding that being so close to the city was not the best idea, because it was too easy for people to pick up and distinguish the fact that Bruce Wayne was Batman, right? They were seeing him every day. People could find a way to break in, different things like that, and putting the pieces together was seemingly just too easy. So it didn't last all that long. And I would say if this does remain a mainstay for James Tynion's run, once he leaves, he'll go back to Wayne Manor, right? And then we'll probably find some way in which, you know, Alfred comes back, probably using the Lazarus pits, you know, who really knows. But the whole point behind this is that he basically says, like, there's a brownstone there that I own, and I didn't even realize that I owned it, so I'm simply going to move into it. I'm not going to live across the bridge. I'm going to live inside this city that I want to protect. So again, kind of reiterating what we've seen happen in years past when it came to Batman. The funny thing about this is that he had actually considered the idea of Selina Kyle kind of renaming herself, right? Like creating a new identity and her working alongside Bruce Wayne. The issue with this is that with Selina Kyle and Bruce Wayne spending time together, and then Catwoman and Batman hanging out together, people would have put the pieces together like that. They would have done it so quick. And they would have said, Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle are hanging out all the time. Batman and Catwoman are fighting crime together all the time. Is Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle Batman and Catwoman? Somebody somewhere would have figured that out, right? The funny thing about this, though, is that Selina Kyle had the reverse idea that Bruce Wayne could just run off with her. Now, of course, Bruce's response is, I can't do that, and that's true, right? How's DC gonna publish Batman comics if Bruce Wayne's not Batman? It doesn't work. Nobody wants to read a Batman comic where Bruce Wayne's not Batman for like 10 years. For a short amount of time, sure, right? Like the whole aftermath of Final Crisis, you know, where like Dick Grayson was Batman for a time and Damian Wayne was Robin, sure, that's interesting. The aftermath of Batman Nightfall, sure. But in terms of like 2030, that like Bruce Wayne is still not Batman, people don't want that. People want Bruce Wayne to be Batman forever, right? It's just kind of the way things are. It's the way comic book fans are. We do not like change. And so it's one of these things where Bruce Wayne basically, and even Selina Kyle basically say, like, we need to kind of get ourselves regrounded, right? Like we need to reground ourselves. And so what's interesting about this is, like, you know, Selina Kyle is like, we'll take 1 year, basically 1 year apart, 1 year for them to figure things out, to get things grounded, to get themselves sorted out. And then at the end of that 1 year, basically reconcile, consolidate, and see whether or not they can move forward together. And so what you kind of end up getting is them basically going to the brownstone of Bruce Wayne and knocking boots, right? I mean, there's no furniture in there. But Selina Kyle's like, who needs furniture? But nonetheless, it's interesting. This is a whole new Batman, right? It's DC taking Batman back to the way he was back during the 60s and the 70s, where he had some semblance of high-tech gadgetry, but Batman comics were largely relying on Bruce Wayne's intuition, right? His intelligence, his detective skills, and some measure of super advanced gadgetry. But in recent years, I would say Batman comics have largely focused and shifted their focus to like Bruce Wayne being able to achieve his goals using like super high-tech stuff. And I'm excited to read comics where it's just Batman and his intellect. I'm excited to read that. It's a throwback to the Batman comics of yesteryear, and I'm looking forward to it a lot. So with that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoy this video, make sure you drop a like. I will catch you all later. Peace.